Hey up everyone, well I'm back from our tour and today I'm going to look at cornering and how to avoid crashing in corners. After the recent tour through Europe into Germany, Switzerland and back, on top of years of track days and riding of all kinds, I think I have a decent grounding in the subject. First, let me say, there is nothing I can say that will prevent every crash. But by looking at the important things everyone should be thinking about when cornering, we can minimise any risk involved when you take any corner. The scary fact is that almost half of all motorcycle accidents happen in corners. That's an alarming statistic, but by thinking ahead, understanding the basic physics involved and the reasons behind these crashes, you can dramatically reduce your own risks out on the road. Now, I'm not trying to tell grandma to suck eggs. I know many of you will do all of this without even thinking, but for newer riders, or those of us who learned a long time ago, a refresher is always worth it. The footage is all from my recent tour through Germany, Italy, Switzerland and Austria, where some of the corners meant all of these hints and tips had to be used to manage the fantastic roads we encountered. You can see more of the raw footage from the tour in the videos I will link in the description, but there are loads on the channel for you to follow the journey we took. I have to thank everyone for all the support you have given me too, and I do feel truly blessed with the fantastic community of subscribers that have helped build the channel into what it is today. If you haven't already subscribed and you enjoyed the video, hitting the like button and clicking to subscribe costs nothing and helps the channel a lot. It means, in theory at least, that you get to find out when our latest videos are released each and every week. I do link other interesting videos made by real bikers on the community tab and the main channel page too, so it's always worth keeping an eye out there. To begin today, I will talk about the most fundamental part of cornering: road position and your line through the turn. Poor road position and line choice are the biggest mistakes most riders make, especially newer riders who haven't learned to carry more corner speed yet. Let us take a close look at what happens when you approach a turn, where to position yourself and how to judge where to turn in better. Many riders, even experienced ones, just turn in too early, and I will look at why that causes problems. But more importantly, I will look at how to master the best cornering lines to improve your safety and control. Get ready for some real world examples as I break it all down as simply as possible. To begin, position is everything. The first thing I will look at is the road position and your approach to the corner. This is something that will determine everything that comes later. I remember the very simple advice of a rider some of you may well remember. The advice was, straighten the corner out as much as you can. That rider was a young Derek Chatterton. He was never short of a word or two, and was one of the riders who I watched rise through the ranks from local club meetings through the national championships and into the international scene. He was never the fastest, but he had a dogged determination that would often see him take wins over much faster bikes and more experienced riders. To follow that advice, we need to position ourselves as far away from the inside of the turn as possible. Now that doesn't mean riding on the white line or in the gutters and picking up all the gravel and marbles that are often there. Be safe, but position yourself so that you can see as far around the corner as possible. On a right hand bend, approach the corner as far left as is safe, and on a left hander, position yourself as far right as is safe. This means you will see the apex sooner and be in the best position to carry your speed through the corner. Another really important piece of advice here is only ever ride to what you can see. You might have ridden that road 1,000 times, know exactly where your braking markers are and your turning points. but you never know if a lorry has spilt diesel or a quarry wagon dropped some pea gravel in the middle of the road that is bound to ruin your day. Prepare for the unexpected, always. This also takes us into something else which might sound counterintuitive, but it works. Get your braking done early. On a road, if you get your braking done early, the bike will be more settled, and however much the corner tightens up, you will be in the best position to deal with it. If the corner opens out after the apex, you can then pin the throttle earlier to get the best drive out of the corner. Anyway, let's get back to the corner entry. Imagine you were out for a spirited ride, approaching a chain of curves, feeling confident, and you decide to pick up the pace a bit. However, as you get near the first bend, a moment of doubt crosses your mind. Can you actually make the corner at this speed? You might try rolling off the throttle or squeezing the brake a little, but your first reaction is more likely to make you instinctively aim for the inside line to just get the corner over with quickly. You start to lean the bike over before you have worked out where the apex is, diving for the inside line in the corner like you have seen so many racers do. Initially, all might seem okay. You've tipped the bike in and you can hook the inside line as you ride in an arc around the curve. But if your turning point takes you into an early apex point, there is only ever one real outcome. You will drift outwards on the exit. About midway through, your arc starts widening, carrying you closer and closer to the outside of the lane. That is when panic levels rise, as you realise you are running out of road. If you don't do something fast, you'll end up in the oncoming lane or off the road entirely, and in the case of some of the roads you see here, that means off the edge of a mountainside. So what could we do differently here? Why did an early turn-in lead to running wide through the exit? I'm about to analyse one real-world corner in detail as an example, but the same principles apply to every corner you will ever ride. The numbers will show you just how much difference your line makes to the forces at play. The difference between those forces with an OK cornering line and an ideal one might surprise you. Every road will have many different lines, each with their own trade-offs to consider, but these principles are always at play. The tighter the curve at the same speed increases the sideways force of the tyre, and the faster the speed around the same curve, the more sideways force is applied to the same tyre. In our example, I've chosen a random right-hand bend on a mountain road from the Krausen Pass in Switzerland, filmed during our recent tour, and I will include links to the original footage in the description. Making a turn like this as straight as possible is never easy, but a wide entry and slow in, fast out approach is always the safest way to start. As I approach the turn, I instinctively move towards the outside and begin to load the front end by applying a little front brake. Once I see the vanishing point in the road, I hit the brake harder and start shedding speed before preparing to lean the bike in. But here, the key question is, what is the best line to take through the curve? To understand that, we need to see both the apex and the exit of the corner. That isn't always possible at this point, but looking ahead to see how the curve tightens up and how the exit runs is vital, so forward planning is all important. On some of the roads here, I'm looking down to see the curves that follow as well as the corner I'm approaching, so when I get to the next corner, I already have a preview of it stored in my mind. A novice rider is often drawn into the inside of the lane too soon. This creates a false apex too early in the corner as they try to stay as far away from the centre of the road as possible. It can feel safer to hook the inside line and steer clear of any oncoming traffic, but it will mean you have to cut more and more speed. Now, trail braking comes in handy here. But to be clear, it is always better and safer to get your braking done first, before the corner, when the bike is in a more upright position, and trail braking is a long story for a different day. So let us look at what happens if we take the inside line with an early apex. Drawing a curve, you can see how the line means you are already drifting out when you reach the real apex of the corner. At that point, the natural line of the bike will take you wider and wider as you exit the corner. The experienced riders will say, but just apply a bit of counter steer or trail braking to tighten up your line. And that is right, but on the road in average conditions, I would argue that it is always better to take a smooth line without the risk of having to adjust your line mid-curve. So as we approach, we ask ourselves, what is the maximum safe speed we can pull through this corner? And here, I will be working on the principle that all bikes, tyres, road conditions, suspension and skill levels are constant between all the comparisons. Let us say, for example, that the maximum safe cornering speed is around 40 miles an hour, or just above 60 kilometers per hour. The width of the arc at its tightest point will create the maximum sideways force on your tyre, and as you tighten up your line, the centrifugal forces trying to push your tyre wider are increased. Remember, if the centrifugal or sideways force on the tyre exceeds the tyre's level of grip, it all ends badly. Unless you have Marc Marquez's need to push yourself up, of course. So what is the right line, I hear you say? Well, this is where recognising the apex comes in, and it will be different for different corners. But if we stay wider at the start and get most of the braking done before the corner, we can then cut back in as soon as we see the apex proper. As we pass the apex, we still begin to drift out, but at this point we can judge the lean angle and begin to stand the bike up to adjust for the exit line, allowing for more power to be applied and faster acceleration out of the corner. Riding this line, which as you can see in the diagram, creates a wider, more even arc, means that the centrifugal force pushing you outwards is reduced dramatically. This means that the sideways force is much less likely to become greater than the grip from your tyre, so you have immediately minimised the chances of a slide. The ideal line, as you'll often see on track maps or watching racers' lines on an open track, is a smooth geometric arc that starts wide on corner entry, clips the inside edge of the apex, then drifts back out wide on corner exit. If we carve that path, we get a wider cornering radius, allowing for faster safe corner speeds. What you might be surprised by is how much these small differences make. Let us take a 180-degree hairpin corner, as it makes it easier to illustrate the effect. Let us say we are taking that corner at 40 miles per hour or around 60 kilometers per hour. Taking a wide in, wide out line, creating a wider arc, can reduce the sideways centrifugal force on the tyre by up to 25%, when compared to taking an early apex line which creates a tighter curve in that same corner at the same speed. That 25% increase means unless you can scrub off more speed, you will be getting much closer to the point where the sideways force exceeds the grip of the tyre, and as we have said before, that almost always ends badly. It may mean a slide, or worse, a high side if the tyre starts to grip again. Even more serious, it could mean you drift into the opposite lane into the oncoming traffic and an 80 mile an hour or 120 kilometers per hour head-on collision. Believe me, that is a place you never want to be. Remember, the sideways force applied to the tyre is relative to the square of the speed, so even a small change in speed has an even bigger effect on the safe speed of a set arc of the corner. This applies in the same way if we decide to ride a narrower arc at the same speed. Just a small tightening of the curve can cause a dramatic lowering of the safe maximum speed on that curve. If we stick to that inside line right around the corner at 40 miles per hour, we would be at the absolute limit of available grip with no margin for error. In contrast, if we ride the ideal geometric line at the same 40 mile an hour or 60 kilometers per hour speed, we would be using around 25% less of the tyre's maximum grip. This gives you a huge safety margin just by choosing the right line. Choosing the right line gives you a significantly bigger margin for error, so the extra grip you have can be used for acceleration, braking or handling any other surprises. Of course, the opposite is also true. A bad line can quickly eat up all your cornering grip and get you into real trouble. In the real world, nailing that perfect geometric line is easier said than done, especially on an unfamiliar road. Truly dialing in that ideal path through a particular set of curves takes forward planning, practice and repetition. That's why racers spend so much time learning the nuances of a circuit and fine-tuning their lines each lap. On the street, we have to assess corners on the fly and often improvise. It's easy for newer riders in particular to turn in too early, wrongly thinking that will give them a comfortingly wider safety margin on the inside of the bend. But let's return to our example corner and see how that plays out. Say the rider misjudges the turn-in and starts to lean the bike over about 8 meters or 26 feet too soon. Initially, this feels fine. The premature turn-in makes for a gentle sweeping arc with a fairly wide radius. However, this early apex line comes back to bite us as we progress through the corner. By the time the real apex arrives, the arc we have chosen is already carrying us wider. As the corner progresses, it becomes terrifyingly apparent that we are on a collision course with the oncoming traffic, or even the opposite side of the road could be approaching fast as we hold that same line. At this point, we're faced with a tough split-second decision. To avoid running off the road or into traffic, we have to tighten our cornering radius dramatically, or stamp the bike up and hit the brakes as hard as possible and hope. The best case scenario is that we can pull that off if we scrub off a little speed. But if we are carrying too much speed, our choices are limited. Now, don't get me wrong, an experienced rider, and particularly people who have raced, will have practiced using counter steer and a little extra throttle to tighten up their cornering. But these are skills learnt the hard way by many, and it's not an easy thing to do. For most people, the intuitive reaction will be to brake hard at the same time as leaning the bike over further, which is just a recipe for disaster. You will see this exact scenario play out in crash footage all the time. The rider turns in a bit too early, gets to the apex and suddenly realises they are never going to make the turn. Panic braking while leant over usually ends up in either a low side slide or a trip into the hedge, or worse if other traffic is involved. The root cause is that early apex. It uses up any room for error before the time that might be needed the most. Remember, slow in, fast out. So, we can say for sure that we clearly want to avoid an early apex line, but we also know a perfect geometric arc isn't always practical on the street. Often the corner exit and even the apex can be obscured physically before we get closer to it. So what is the best solution? Luckily, there is a cornering approach we can use that is more forgiving, giving you a bigger margin for error, as well as allowing you to carry plenty of corner speed through the corner. This is where the statement "slow in, fast out" becomes more relevant than ever. If an early apex is the risky extreme, a late apex can often be the safer, smarter route to take. The concept is simple and goes back to where we started, right to what you can see. Rather than diving in towards the inside of the corner at the first opportunity, remember, you aren't in a race trying to make a block pass. If you stay out wide on the corner entry and delay your turn in, you will need to brake harder and longer to cut enough speed to create a tighter arc at the start of the turn. This means that although you enter the corner more slowly, as the arc widens, you can progressively apply more and more power as you stamp the bike up in the widening portion of the arc. Your line will take you past the geometric apex point, which is why we use the term a late apex. If we turn in just 5 meters later than we would to create the perfect geometric line, we end up carving a tighter radius at the start of the turn. This will mean you have to scrub off significantly more speed before you enter the corner, but you have time to do this in that extra 5 meters, and it pays dividends in several ways. First, we are still in a straight line leading up to the corner when braking, as we decide to delay our turn-in. That makes it much easier to shed speed in a controlled way. Adjusting speed before you have the bike leant over is far easier and safer than trying to slow down once you are leant into the turn. Second, as we get further around the bend and spot our exit, the arc is opening up dramatically, and rather than running out of road and having to tighten up, we can now relax, stand the bike up more and accelerate out of the corner without getting close to that point where the tyres break adhesion. It isn't impossible to run wide with this approach, but it is much easier not to. As with anything, there will always be exceptions, so try to stay prepared. You can see here where I've stayed out wide to the left before entering the corner. Then, at the last moment, as I begin to turn in, I feel the front begin to slide on some marbles in the middle of the road. The road was clear and I managed to stand the bike up a bit and brake hard enough to adjust my turn in and stop any real overrun into the opposite lane. But none of us can ever predict everything that we will face on the roads. In almost every normal situation, on any corner, braking in a straight line, turning in a little later and waiting to spot the exit before we commit to a line will maintain a bigger safety margin and avoid the risk of destroying ourselves or the bike in that corner where things don't run to plan. As a bonus, the later turn-in helps to increase the possible field of view through the corner. This is especially important on blind bends with elevation changes. The further we stay towards the outside of the lane, the more of the road ahead we can see, giving us the maximum time possible to see and react to any mid-corner hazards. So, there you have it. The secret to avoiding needless crashes is in your own hands. It's all about the line you choose. Turning in early might feel fast and the safer option, but it isn't. It's a mistake that can quickly see you running out of road and with a long road to recovery. Remember that statement: slow in, fast out. The safer, smarter and ultimately faster approach in most cases is to get your braking done early in a straight line before the corner. Look as far ahead as possible, turn in later, stay wide until you can see the exit, and then roll on the throttle as you lean the bike back up and take the fast route out of the bend. By waiting to commit to your line, you give yourself the maximum number of options to adjust to any unexpected circumstances you may find. On the street, where every corner is different and road conditions are unpredictable, this more conservative approach will help you increase your safety margins and avoid any nasty surprises that might get thrown your way. Now, to pick the right line through a corner is just one piece of the puzzle. To ride like a pro, you need to master much more. Seeing the road as far ahead as possible, and using your vision to open up the road is vital. Body position, throttle and brake control and more all play a part too, and I may well look at them in future videos, so be sure to subscribe and stay tuned. Until the next time, remember to look beyond the corner and choose your lines wisely, and always think, ride to what you can see, and slow in, fast out will always help you to increase your confidence in corners. Thanks for watching, and as always I look forward to hearing your comments. I hope you enjoyed the video and can take the time to look around the channel and watch some of the others you'll find there. If you got this far and haven't already, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Subscribing helps us a lot and will mean you get to find out when our regular updates, news, views and other videos go out. Please share the video with anyone you think will be interested too if you could. It all helps kick the YouTube algorithm into gear and gets the channel out there to new potential viewers. You can visit the website or the Red Bull shop linked in the description below for the best biker t-shirts and other merchandise too. There are more exciting motorcycle adventures and other stories from the shed and beyond on the website, so why not grab a cuppa and take a look around. You won't be disappointed. Thanks for watching. I hope you get some great riding in, and remember, keep your spanners close and your keys even closer. Ride free everyone.